Some of the ribbon tabs have now undergone a bit of a visual refresh. Most of the commands are still in the same place. However, you may find that they now have newer looking icons. In both the vertical grading editor and the cross-section window, users can now toggle the display of a grid. The button for this is found at the very bottom of both the vertical grading editor and the cross-section window, and can be toggled on and off just using the following button on both of the forms. Users can also turn on the display of a crosshair. This is in addition to your cursor, so just by clicking the little crosshair button you can now get a crosshair displayed on screen, and again this is for both the vertical grading editor and the cross-section window. If you want to change the settings for both the grid and the crosshair, you can do this via the settings tab. Click on the settings button and then you'll see there's a new button called grid settings, and in there for the vertical grading editor you can set up the grid spacing, text size, etc. Any changes you make in here will require the vertical grading editor to be closed and then reopened to initiate any changes. For the cross-section window, the display tab followed by the settings button, and in here you can again change the defaults every time you open up a cross section as to whether or not you want the grid to be shown, and then the spacing of that particular grid followed by information about the text size. So you can set this up as your default every time you open up your cross section window. Found on the Roads tab under the Resample Sections pull down, there's a new tool called Multi-Edit, and Multi-Edit helps users manage a range of different options on multiple strings within the project. Users can now change the sampled surface, section spacings and templates to individual or multiple strings within one single interface. One of the great things about this form is that we can now go in and change very quickly the sampled surface to multiple strings. So in this instance I'm simply going to go and change the sampled surface to these 3 roads to a brand new survey that we've maybe had created, and then all we do is go and check override selected, and that new surface has been applied to those particular strings. We could do the same with, for example, the curve returns as well. We click calculate strings, and then in the background resample sections is being run on those 3 particular strings. On the Roads tab found under the profile string pull down, there's a new tool called String from Code. String from Code will go ahead and create a profile string from a particular code on a string using elevations from a model of your choice. In this example I'm simply going to take the footpath outer code, which is found on this road here, Islet Street, and simply create a string. If your code happens to be in multiple sections, which for example this footpath code is, you'll have a new alignment for each portion and a new string created on each of those alignments. Let's have a look at how this works. First of all, we select the model, which is the one I'm going to be selecting here. We select the string that we want to use, which in this case is Islet Street. Then we choose the code, and in this case I'm going to use the left footpath outer code. We can then determine the chainage range where this would occur, so if we only wanted one single portion of this particular code, we could just set that particular chainage range. In this case I'm going to be choosing the entire string. We can then have a template applied on each of those profile strings that will be created. In this instance I'm not going to be choosing one. We can then in addition tell Islet Street to have a variation applied where each of these profile strings is added as a set code to string variation. We could then also tell the software to remove any codes outside of that particular string. If we were attaching a template that included a batter, we could then tell the software to remove the batter entirely. If you want to, you can generate a Civil 3D profile only of that particular string using the elevations from that model. Underneath, because we're creating a Civil 3D alignment in this particular instance, we can choose what style we're going to be using for that alignment, followed by a label set. We can also choose a Civil 3D profile style and label set if we're generating one. Let's click on Create. Now if we go and have a quick look, you'll see that we have an alignment created for each of those portions of our left footpath outer code. In addition, we have profile strings that have now been created on top of those alignments. A reference surface entry has been added to auto profile, simply matching onto that particular model that we chose. We're now free to go in and edit this string and change its geometry if we choose. Users now have another option when it comes to the line work that is drawn by Civil Site Design in your CAD platform. Found in Toggle Display, in the Models and Line Work tab, users can now, in addition to the line work that Civil Site Design draws for your strings, also draw dynamic polylines or CAD entities of that particular line work. This is how it works. We're going to uncheck Fast Draw and check CAD entities. We're going to then click OK. In the drawing, we now have polylines being drawn for all of the line work associated with all of your models. This line work will also update. If I go ahead and make a change to the road elevations here, which in turn will adjust the batter line work in the drawing environment, when the model updates, the polylines will also update with those particular changes to the design. If you want to remove the polylines from the drawing, you can do so by going back to Toggle Display and checking on the Fast Draw only. You can have both turned on if you want. When you uncheck CAD entities, the software will not automatically remove them from the drawing. You'll have to run cleanup, and you can do that by checking this box down here to open cleanup when you leave Toggle Display. Click on cleanup and that will remove the polylines from the drawing. In the General tab, users now have a couple of new tools to assist with page setup and batch printing. First of all, in the System Settings panel, there is the Resize and Layout Settings option. This allows users to set up the default sheet size used by Civil Site Design when it plots things like cross sections and long sections. Once this is set up, every time you now print, as I'm now going to do with some cross sections for this particular road, that particular page setup will be used. In the preview, you can see here we've now got the page setup being applied to the first sheet. When we go plot to layout, we'll now have that same setup being used for all sheets within the project. Also found on the General tab, Project Admin panel, users can quickly batch print sheets to a device of their choice. In this example, I'm simply going to be picking the DWG to PDF, the media name, and then the location of where I want these PDFs to be plotted to. In this case, I have a folder already created. All we then do is check the sheets that we want to print, click on plot. These sheets will be published to that particular media type, and the folder where they're generated will automatically be displayed on screen.